Hi friends, my name is Alexandria and today I'm taking you all on a tour of my newly converted 2016 Subaru Outback. Now I just completed this build last week. It's not fancy, it's very simple, but it's functional, and that was really the goal here. I'll be using this as a part-time road living and camping rig over the next couple of months here in Colorado, and I wanted something that could just get us out on the road as soon as possible. That said, I definitely have plans to add to this conversion both on the inside and outside, which I'll cover throughout the entire tour. So make sure to come back, subscribe down below to see how this evolves over time and to follow our camping adventures. But enough talking for me for now, let's go take a look at the car. So as I was mentioning, the car is stock. There have been no upgrades. I still even have the all-weather, not all-terrain tires on the wheels. And the reason I'm doing the tour now instead of waiting until I've done all the upgrades is really to show, not only to myself, but to anyone else out there who wants to get outside, that you don't need a fancy car, you don't need all of the overland modifications to get out to beautiful sites like this. Now, the reason I'm bringing you guys to this side of the car is unfortunately not for a cool upgrade or modification, but it's actually just to show the front end of the car. Because the other day, and I just bought this car 2.5 weeks ago, I think, maybe 3, I was involved in a hit and run. I was parked out in front on my street, and unfortunately, during the day at some point, someone came by and wiped out the entire side of my car. So my bumper has rips in it, it's folded in, it goes up onto the side body of the car all the way to the back, and thankfully my insurance is going to be covering this, so I will be able to replace it without too much damage to my wallet or bank account. But it's why I'm considering doing that upgrade now, because either way it's going to cost me money, so I might as well make a modification if I'm going to ultimately anyways, as opposed to replacing it with the same stock bumper and then having to do it again in the future. Now, if you're a new viewer, you might not know, but I recently got off the road full time. I was living out there for just over 2 years in various rigs, so the Subaru is definitely a big change, as is living in an apartment. And while we're on the topic of safety and security and insurance, I figured it's a great time to talk about today's sponsor, Aura. To be honest, protecting my personal data was not top of mind when I was living on the road. But over the last few weeks and months, as I've been applying for insurances, running my credit, getting permanent addresses, I've been more and more concerned about how my data is being used and viewed online, and personal security is a top priority of mine. Earlier today, I took a few minutes to do a quick Google search of my name, and the results were shocking. At first, it was my public profiles like YouTube and LinkedIn that I'd published over the years. But the longer I looked, the more personal it got, with my phone number, email addresses, employment history, and other personal data being posted for the world to see by data brokers. Thankfully, with Aura, I can see which data brokers are selling and posting my information, so that way I can opt out and my information can be removed from these sites. And even if you're not posting your personal information and life for the world to see like I am, having everyday relationships with companies like AT&T as an example, who just revealed that over 73 million customers had their personal data leaked to the dark web, can put you at risk as well. They're currently recommending that those affected use stronger passwords, monitor account activity, and consider credit freezes and fraud alerts from credit bureaus, all of which takes a lot of time and multiple accounts to manage. But gratefully, Aura does all of this for me, simplifying the process and taking the hard work out of my hands. Had my own information been compromised in the AT&T leak, I would be able to rest assured knowing that Aura is always on doing the hard work for me. Ultimately, I don't think you can put a price on personal privacy and security online especially, and with Aura, you won't have to. To get started, visit the link down in my description down below, or visit www.aura.com/SheRoamsWild to get a 2-week free trial and to see how Aura can protect you. So the first thing that you're going to notice about this build more than likely is just how simple it is. As I was mentioning, I just completed this, and buying the car 2.5 weeks ago, then being in an accident and having it done already lends itself to a simpler build in general. And the reason for that right now is because the purpose and the goal of this build for me is not to have tricked out amenities, to be living in it full time, or to have, I don't know, all the widgets and gadgets in the world, but it's to keep things simple, to give us some shelter, and to get out fast, frequently, and with purpose. In this back section here, you'll see a couple of choices that I made specifically for that reason, like having these totes that are just plastic without lids even, instead of full wood pull-out drawers. And they're way lighter. I think a wood drawer probably at this size would have weighed anywhere from like 30 to 40 pounds, maybe even more if I had drawers and slides and whatnot. So doing this really allowed me to maximize use of the space in the simplest way possible and only cost about $8 per tote. Breaking it down side to side, this one over here is much more for gear storage right now. You probably noticed, but I don't have a gearbox on the top yet. It's an upgrade that I would love to have in the future, but for now, I have small things like a fishing pole. I actually have a drill in here from a project I was just working on earlier, a hatchet. I have a water filtration device, so if we're by a creek or a river, obviously I don't have the ability to carry a bunch of onboard water, but that allows me to filter up to, I think, 8 gallons or so an hour, which is far more water than we will be needing. One of the biggest questions, having been on the road for a while and done a few of these tours now, is where do you go to the bathroom? Now, this is kind of the answer. I do have this collapsible fold-out trowel from Rhino USA, which, having now used it for over 3 years, I cannot recommend it enough. Even in the hardest of soil, it's never left us stranded. But what I want to mention with this is that our impact out here is so important to be mindful of, and having seen the van life, road life, camping and outdoor community absolutely blow up over the past few years has been both awesome and kind of terrible for the environment. I love seeing more people getting out. I think it's so important to go out in our public spaces and enjoy them and recreate in them, but it's also equally, if not more important, to take care of them. And so I have that trowel for environments where maybe it's not possible, or I'm out there for a really long time and I don't have the ability to pack out. But 9 or 9.5 times out of 10, I'm actually packing my waste out with me. You can get creative about how to do that. I really like to use doggy bags because they're small, and then I just bundle them with my dog's waste and I bring them all out with me. On this second side, we're now on the driver's side, I have a tote that is mainly for kitchen stuff. So I have a little jet boil. I have actually my water jug, which today I'm just out here showing you guys, so it's not full, but right now I'm using a collapsible little water jug. So again, very easy to fill, very easy to pack out. I have some wipes in here, my coffee press, and then in the back, I just have some dried foods like granola, oatmeal packets, fig Newtons, and some other consumables. This jar is by far the most simple setup that I've ever had on the road, but I think there is something to be said again about simplicity. And some of my favorite memories come well before my time spent living full time in a rig with a kitchen and an oven, and go back to backpacking, actually just a little ways away from here on the Colorado Trail. Now, generally speaking, the other half of the kitchen has to do with the fridge and food. I opted to not go with the fridge for this build. There's a few reasons why, but instead I'm using this small, I believe it's like a 30 liter or 30 can, I don't know exactly how they qualify it, igloo cooler that I picked up at Walmart for about $40. The reason for that is, one, as you can see, it really fits in the space well. The door can still shut. My mattress is not being compromised, does not have to be smaller, and it still allows enough space back here, not only for this hatch to come down, but for other things to be stored, like water if I'm just sitting out at camp and I want to have it out. Now, the reason behind not going for a fridge is multifold. One, cost. I wanted to do this as budget friendly as possible, and for me, using a cooler versus a fridge is money that I could really save and instead spend on something like a better mattress that fit the space, so that way I sleep better at night, which is a top priority of mine. I also, as I mentioned, wanted to keep weight down, and having a fridge in here not only would take up more space, but it also is a lot heavier than just a little foam cooler. And on top of that, to access the fridge would be very difficult, whereas this has a handle and I can just pull it out. A fridge would have needed to be on slides, which weigh an additional 20-30 pounds and take up more space, and also would have required to slide this way, so all of this space would have been lost as well. Before moving on to this weird little divider thing behind me that's actually not a divider but something else entirely, let's stay in the back here and cover the sleeping situation really quick. I did purchase the X-Ped. I think this is a regular or medium wide. It's a 4-inch thick air plus foam mattress, which honestly might even be more comfortable than my bed back home. There are 2 valves that allow you to inflate and deflate it, so getting an inflatable mattress for me as opposed to foam was really advantageous because it allows me to have more flexibility and make this build more modular. Because I'm not in it full time, I don't necessarily need a bed every day in here, and if there are times when I need to go maybe purchase something that's longer, or I just want to have use of the back seats, I could in less than 5 minutes deflate this, roll it up, keep it in the back even if I wanted to, and bring those seats back up just to have more options. So coming over to the driver's side rear, again, the main purpose of this space is to be multifunctional. Right now I have it set up in kind of like a work hangout mode, so this seat is actually up because I'm just one person and a dog, and there's plenty of space for her to sit both with me or in this seat when the table is not here or up front. I didn't feel like I needed to have this back space converted into a platform 24/7. I do have the option to do that, and I'll show you how in a moment, but first let's talk about the space as it sits. So I do have these little twinkly lights that are kind of in the way. If I wasn't talking to you like this, they would not be there. But that's the light source for camp, and it's powered by, normally, the Bluetti that sits down at my feet. One of the great things about the Bluetti is that it is water resistant up to, I believe, 65 PSI, so if there's ever a time that I want to be inside and I don't need power, or if I just want to move it out of the way, so that way my feet can swing over and I can, for example, work at this desk or have a meal or just hang out, watch a show, I can easily do that. The Bluetti also fits up in the front seats. I'm just not gonna take it out right now and show you guys. It fits very perfectly down here, and I've already used it a couple of times to do things like plug in my lights, charge my batteries for my camera, my drone, etc. One of the nicest things about this table too is that it is also very modular. So if I do want to fold these seats down, or maybe I just want to sit here without a table, all I have to do is take these strings out from over the side. This just sits on its own. I can slide it down between the seats, and now this whole space is open for whatever other uses I might have. And as you'll see when I step out, hopefully, there is also access to the underbed from this side too. More than likely, I'll be accessing it from the other side when it's daylight and I'm out here, but during the nighttime, if I want to access it and I'm inside of the camper, I'll be able to reach over, grab out whatever I need, and not have to leave the vehicle. So I don't know how many times I can mention that that divider is not a divider and that the seats fold down without actually showing you. So I'm gonna take a moment and break this down and show you guys how this single platform can turn into a double in like 2 minutes. And that's it, just that easy. Now, don't get me wrong, there are definitely a lot of benefits to having a full sleeping platform back here, which is why a lot of people do it. Or perhaps they make this entire thing fixed and then they put storage here, like they'll build out a separate cabinet. But that would have defeated a lot of my purposes pretty quickly, as it's not only heavier and requires more time, money, and work, but it also really reduces the modularity of the build, which, as I've mentioned, is very important to me. And while I'm laying down on the bed area and talking about it, let's also just discuss how these two are modular and removable. As you saw, this one I just set in because 99% of the time it won't live here, and so I did not bolt it down, screw it down, or hinge it in any way. On the other side, where the bed currently is and where y'all are sitting, I did actually put hinges in. They do not hinge like a normal hinge would, but I did that because it does give me two options. One, if I wanted to remove that piece and store it in the back, I could just unscrew it and then take that piece and move it back. Or if I wanted to just keep the hinges in place, for example, again, it can't hinge up because it is too tall, but I could just take out a couple of those screws or hit the pin out because it is a regular door hinge, and then just remove the piece that way. The section underneath the bed is really for things that just easily pull out. Like I have a spare blanket in here, a bag which has like my hammock in it, and a couple of extra camp things. And there is honestly so much extra space under there that might even be where I store clothes in the future. Haven't really decided yet. I think it's probably going to take a couple of trips to work out the kinks and figure out what I need, what I don't need, what I use, and what I don't use before making that decision. All right, friends, well, that is going to do it for the tour today. But because I know that a lot of you are really interested in the cost of getting into something like this, I'm going to leave a link down in the description down below to a Google sheet, which will categorize to the best of my ability and receipt keeping all of the expenses for this build. And I hope that if you take away anything from this video, it is that car camping, getting out in nature does not have to be expensive or complicated. You don't have to have a huge fancy build like I and other people in the past and currently have. It can be nice if you have the ability and can afford that luxury, but in a lot of ways, I think this setup, something that's functional for part-time use and just you can pack the car and go, is even better when you're living a more normal life. I'll make sure to keep you guys updated on how the repairs on the front bumper go, which might have us out of commission in terms of camping for a bit if the car has to be in the shop. But if you did enjoy today's video, if you liked the build and want to see more or want to see it in action, make sure to hit that subscribe button to join us for our upcoming journeys into the Colorado mountains with hopefully more bright and sunny weather like this. Thank you all so much for being here. We'll see you on the next one. Bye.